Hey guys! Today we wake not in the comfort of a soft mattress or the glow of a smartphone alarm, but in a world where dawn itself feels hostile. You are in Tudor Britain, and the sun, leaking through a tiny square of oiled parchment instead of glass, does not greet you with warmth. It limps into the room, a pale smear of light struggling through smoke and dust. Congratulations, you've survived the night? That's already more than many Tudor souls could claim. But don't cheer. Your lungs are still choked from the fire that smoldered too long in the hearth. Your throat tastes like wet wool, and your head throbs from breathing in smoke that never truly leaves. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from across the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes on what passes for a bed, a sack stuffed with straw. Matted, sour, and lumpy. It hasn't been changed in decades. Maybe in every handful of stalks smells faintly of mildew, goat, and defeat. Mice scuttle within it. Fleas jump freely. At some point in the night, a cat padded across your legs. Though you're not sure if it belongs to your household or if it's just another squatter making use of the only warm bodies in town. Either way, the cat, the vermin, and you share the same blanket of thin wool. The first sound of the day is not birdsong. It's the splash of your neighbor emptying their chamber pot directly into the street, complete with a cheerful shout of warning that's less courtesy and more ritual. Gardy-loo, the contents sail through the crisp morning air, striking cobblestones below with a wet crack. A foul comet. The smell follows instantly, mixing with last night's smoke and the stink of unwashed bodies all around you. Welcome to the Tudor morning. You sit up, regretting it instantly. Your back creaks. Your knees snap, and the cold air wraps around you like an iron shroud. The fire in the hearth is nothing but ash. Central heating won't exist for centuries, and the chimney is a jokea hole in the roof. Really so, the smoke has invaded the room instead of leaving it. It has taken permanent residence in your lungs, your hair, your clothes. Coughing is the background noise of Tudor life. In the corner, your cousin wheezes a cough, so wet it echoes like a pale sloshing. You hope it's not plague. But then again, what isn't? You look around. Privacy doesn't exist. If you're poor and you share this room with family. Maybe neighbors. Perhaps boarders too. Everyone sleeps in heaps. Bodies pressed together more for survival than affection. A stranger's elbow may be under your ribs. Someone's child whimpers in the dark. There is no silence here, only snores, coughs, and the gnawing of rats beneath the floorboards. If there were a mirror, you'd see hair flattened with grease, eyes red and sunken, and teeth that lean a little more crooked every day. That tired face belongs to you, a common Tudor survivor. You rise carefully, avoiding a squishy patch on the floor that may or may not be animal dung tracked in from yesterday. Either way, stepping in it barefoot is not how you want to begin your miserable Tudor Monday. The day has begun, and it's not going to be kind. Time to freshen up. Except in Tudor Britain, freshen up is a phrase that deserves air quotes. Hygiene here isn't a ritual. It's a rumor. There is no toothbrush waiting for you. No minty toothpaste. Not even the concept of rinsing with clean water. Instead, your options for dental care resemble medieval dares. If you're lucky, and luck is a cruelly relative thing, you might rub a rag dipped in salt across your teeth. That's right, scrape your gums raw with rock crystals and hope it makes a difference. Some prefer soot, rubbed from the fireplace, because nothing says fresh breath like carbon scoring your molars. Others chew on herbs or twigs cloves if you can find them, but more likely mint leaves or thin sticks. Splinters in the gums are common. Infection follows, and then pain. But perhaps you've inherited money, or you're part of the gentry. Surely that means better oral health? Not quite. The upper classes, addicted to sugar-candied figs, preserved fruits, cakes glistening with imported sweetness, often had it worse. Elizabeth I herself was infamous for her blackened teeth, and because monarchs set trends, the court followed. Imagine that, rot and decay, not hidden, but flaunted, painted across smiles, like badges of sophistication. Rotten teeth were fashionable, a grotesque flex of wealth. Still, even for those who could afford sugar, the consequences were brutal. When pain struck a throbbing molar, a jaw that swelled like a goose egg, you sought help. Not from a dentist, the profession didn't exist yet, but from the village barber surgeon. Yes, the same man who trims your hair, sets your bones, and lets your blood with leeches also pulls teeth. He reaches for iron pliers, maybe a hook. Sterilization is non-existent. He wipes his tools on a rag, or more likely on his apron, and begins. No anesthesia, no numbing agent, just a strong wrist and the expectation that you will scream. He clamps, twists, and wrenches. The tooth comes out in a crack of pain so sharp it vibrates through your skull. Sometimes, pieces of the jaw come with it. Sometimes, The surgeon misses altogether and breaks healthy teeth. Sometimes, he simply gives up and tells you to drink more ale until the pain fades or until you die. Whichever comes first. The extracted teeth don't always vanish into rubbish. They're kept as charms. Some wear them as necklaces. Others offer them to saints. A macabre recycling of suffering into symbols of luck. Dentures, for the rich, may be crafted from ivory, bone, or even the teeth of the dead, scavenged from battlefields or gallows. Imagine smiling with someone else's molars in your mouth, their history lingering in every bite. And breath? Don't even ask. Everyone reeks. You smell it in the room. A stew of onions, ale, and rot. But because every mouth is equally foul, no one notices. Or rather, no one dares complain. Bad breath is as universal as hunger. It's a collective burden, endured like taxes or disease. As you step outside to greet the morning, your jaw aches even though nothing has happened yet. That's Tudor dentistry, anticipation of pain, baked into everyday life. Your stomach growls. And in Tudor Britain, that's both normal and ominous. Hunger is the background hum of existence. But it's time for breakfast, if you can call it that. Forget coffee, cereal, fruit, or anything resembling joy. The first meal of the day is beige, heavy, and faintly depressing. The drink, not tea, not coffee. Those haven't reached common tables yet. Instead, you're served ale. Yes, ale for breakfast. Everyone drinks it, men, women, children, even expectant mothers, because water itself is suspect. Polluted with waste and disease. A tankard of weak, cloudy beer feels safer than a cup from the village well. Monks brew it. Peasants gulp it. And nobles sip stronger versions sweetened with spices. The bitterness lingers in your mouth, mingling with that already sour breath. But it's the Tudor equivalent of a healthy start. Now for the food. Bread is king, the foundation of every meal. But not the golden loaves you know today. For peasants, bread is coarse, often made from rye or barley, dense enough to bruise if thrown. Tudor physicians, relying on theories of humors, warn that such bread causes wind and melancholy in early diagnosis of bloating and bad moods. They weren't wrong. Chewing it is a workout. It scrapes your gums and leaves your jaw sore. Butter is rare. Eggs appear if the hens feel cooperative. Meat? Almost never. Unless you slaughtered your pig or caught a rabbit. Bacon is a delicacy reserved for lucky mornings. More often, You get pottage, a gruel of boiled grains, vegetables, and whatever scraps of fat you can throw in. It's hot, at least, but thick as paste and flavored with despair. If you're wealthy, things improve, but only marginally. Your bread is white, refined, softer, though not exactly delicious. Cheese may accompany it, though it tastes like roof tile. A boiled egg arrives, cooked until the yolk is gray. Honey, if you're fortunate, adds sweetness, though it comes with bits of wax or stray bee legs. Fruit is rare. Fresh produce is seen as suspicious, even dangerous. Often baked or boiled until it resembles mush to avoid imbalances of the humors. Jam? That's for royalty. Made from imported sugar so expensive it's practically currency. Sugar, however, is also poison. Nobles gorge themselves on it to flaunt wealth, but their teeth rot, blacken, and ache as a result. Imagine breakfasting on candied nuts or marzipan, only to wince with every bite because your molars are crumbling. Wealth spares you hunger but serves decay on a silver plate. Still, no one lingers at breakfast. Food is fuel, nothing more. You chew, swallow, and move on because the day's labor won't wait. Bread fills your stomach just enough to remind you you're alive. Ale steadies your nerves. Together, they form the Tudor morning ritual, sustenance without comfort, survival without pleasure. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand. That's all the napkin you'll ever need. Now that your stomach is weighed down with ale and coarse bread, it's time to dress. In Tudor Britain, this is less slip something on and more submit to a daily act of torture disguised as fashion. Clothing here is not about comfort. It's about showing your place in the social order, no matter how stiff, itchy, or suffocating the result. Let's begin with men. Your first layer is a linen shirt if you're lucky. It's clean, though clean here means only lightly yellowed with sweat. Over this comes the doublet, a padded, buttoned vest that squeezes your chest into the shape of a wine bottle. On your legs, hose cling tight, showing off contours you never wanted highlighted. For footwear, stiff leather shoes or wooden soles grind against your feet, offering zero cushioning and guaranteed blisters by noon. And then there's the ruff, that's starched, pleated collar that encircles your neck like a pie crust. Elegant? Perhaps. Comfortable? Never. You can't look down, and you can barely breathe. Now for women. The ordeal is worse. First comes the smock, a simple linen layer. Then the kirtle, Then the farthingale hoop skirt that spreads your gown into a small architectural project. Add the bodice. Laced so tightly, it presses your ribs inward and rearranges your organs. Breathing becomes optional. The ruff crowns your neck, stiff and immovable, while sleeves balloon and drag like anchors. By the time you're fully dressed, you're a walking sculpture. Sitting, bending, or reaching becomes a logistical nightmare. But that's the point. The more impractical your outfit, the higher your status. Comfort is for peasants. Struggling to move is a luxury. Headwear finishes the ensemble. Men wear flat caps or broad hats. Women don hoods, veils, or elaborate headdresses. Each choice screams your rank. Wear the wrong color or fabric, and you risk breaking the sumptuary law's actual legislation dictating what you're allowed to wear. Velvet, silk, and purple are for the elite. A poor man caught in satin can be fined or worse. Fashion is law, and your outfit is your ID card. Washing these garments is rare. Linen underclothes may be laundered occasionally, but outer garments? Too risky. Water could shrink or destroy them. So dirt builds up, layer upon layer, masked with perfume or herbs. Imagine sweat-soaked fabric, stiff with grime, perfumed with lavender water until it reeks like floral despair. That is the Tudor aroma. Buttons are mostly decorative. Laces and pins hold everything together, making dressing a two-person job. Servants tug strings, fasten hooks, and tighten stays. Wealthy ladies may spend an hour or more just getting dressed. Peasants, of course, have it simpler, but simpler means one outfit, patched and threadbare, worn day after day until it falls apart. By midday, whether noble or commoner, your body aches, your feet throb, your ribs protest, your skin itches, and you dare not raise your arms too quickly, lest seams rip. Yet you endure. Because in Tudor Britain, fashion is survival. Dress poorly and you're dismissed. Dress richly and you might suffocate. Either way, the clothes wear you, not the other way around. You push open the door, hoping for fresh air. Instead, the outside world slams into you like a wall. The streets of Tudor Britain do not smell of baked bread or flowers. They reek an endless cocktail of human waste. Rotting meat, animal dung, and whatever died last night and hasn't yet been carried away. Imagine compost left in the sun for weeks. Then imagine living inside it. That's your first breath of morning. The ground beneath your feet isn't paved. Not unless you're in the wealthiest parts of London. It's mud in winter, dust in summer, and sludge year-round. Chamber pots are emptied straight into the street from upstairs windows, sometimes with a shouted "Gardyloo" if the thrower is feeling polite. If not, well, congratulations. You've just had the Elizabethan version of a water balloon fight. The contents splatter, soak, and trickle down the road, mingling with the droppings of horses, pigs, and geese that roam freely. Livestock is everywhere. Pigs snuffle through refuse. Geese strut with the confidence of aristocrats. Chickens dart across your path. Horses clop past, hauling carts that rattle dangerously close to your shins before unloading another pile of dung into the stew of the street. Dogs, mostly half-wild, bark and scavenge from heaps of garbage. In this ecosystem, rats thrive, bold enough to dart across your shoes in broad daylight. They're not background pests, they're citizens, co-inhabitants of every lane. The road itself is treacherous. To keep your shoes from sinking into filth, you strap on pattens, wooden platforms that elevate you above the muck. They clack and wobble as you walk, turning every step into a balancing act. Miss your footing, and you're ankle-deep in liquid regret. When it rains, rivers of sewage flow through town. Slow-moving brown streams trickling toward the nearest ditch. Children play in them anyway. They have no choice. Noise batters your ears. Hawkers shout their wares. Blacksmiths hammer iron. Beggars plead. Some without limbs. Others blind from disease. Drunken men bellow. The clatter of hooves, the creak of carts, and the splash of waste make conversation nearly impossible. If you're unlucky, a fight breaks out in front of you fists, knives, or worse. Crowds gather quickly, cheering, jeering, and blocking the way. And then there's the stench. It never leaves. Pomander's small balls filled with herbs or spices, fashionable accessories, carried to mask the air. You hold one close to your nose, inhaling lavender or rosemary. But it's hopeless. The smell of Tudor Britain is everywhere, woven into your clothes, your hair, your very skin. Yet despite the filth, the streets are alive. Markets spill into alleys, with vendors hawking bread, fish half-rotten by midday, and cheap ale. Gossip spreads as quickly as disease. Every corner teems with activity. It's chaotic, filthy, and dangerous. But it's also the beating heart of Tudor life. Step carefully. One misstep could cost you your shoes, your dignity, or your health. You keep walking, but don't imagine for a second that you're free to be whoever you want to be. In Tudor Britain, society is a stone wall, and you are born into your rung of it, like mortar between bricks. There is no climbing. You do not dream of becoming a noble if you are born a peasant. Ambition isn't admired. It's punished. At the very top stands the monarch, Henry VIII. Elizabeth E. Whoever wears the crown wields terrifying authority. A glance, a whim, even a passing irritation with your hat could result in your imprisonment, ruin, or execution. Beneath the monarch, nobles control vast estates, enjoying privileges that are both obvious and absurd. Below them, the gentry, wealthy landowners without title still wield power in towns and counties. Merchants sit further down, their wealth begrudgingly acknowledged, but never quite respected. And at the bottom, the majority, laborers, peasants, beggars. You. Being poor isn't a temporary setback. It's a life sentence. From the food on your plate to the fabric on your back, every detail screams your place. And it isn't just social convention, it's law. Sumptuary laws regulate what you can wear, what you can eat, even the colors allowed in your clothing. Purple? That's for royalty. Velvet? Reserved for nobles. Fur? Only the upper gentry and above. If you're caught in the wrong fabric, you could be fined, shamed, or worse. Your wardrobe isn't just fashion, it's a government-issued name tag. Education belongs to the wealthy. If you're a commoner, your literacy is likely non-existent. Your prayers are memorized. Your stories oral. Ambition itself is dangerous. Speak too eloquently, and you might be accused of witchcraft. Appear too clever, and whispers of treason might follow. Both could end with you dangling from a rope or burning in a square while a crowd cheers. Religion, of course, reinforces this hierarchy. Priests preach that God Himself ordained your poverty, that your hunger is noble, that your suffering is divine. Question this, and you risk heresy charges. Better to bow your head and accept that heaven awaits eventually. For now, your role is to labor, obey, and endure. And yet, beneath this rigid structure simmers resentment. Merchants, growing wealthy from trade, push at the boundaries of what's permitted. Some buy land, nudging into the gentry. Others bribe officials to wear silk or velvet illegally, daring the crown to notice. But for most, the latter is sealed. You know your place, and everyone else knows it too. Step outside of it, and the system will correct you harshly. In Tudor Britain, class is not just background, it's destiny. Your name, your job, your clothes, your meals all dictated by birth. You are not free. You are categorized, contained, and controlled, living inside an invisible cage built from law, religion, and fear. The sun is barely up, but already your body is demanded by work. In Tudor Britain, labor isn't a path to self. Fulfillment, it's the tether that keeps you alive for one more day. Every bone, every muscle, every child's hand is pressed into service. Because if you stop working, you stop eating. If you are a farmer and most are you wake before dawn, your stomach only half filled with bread and ale. Your day is spent stooped in the fields, plowing with wooden tools that splinter and break, guiding a weary ox that limps with age. Your boots sink into mud. Your back screams. But you keep going. Rain or shine, harvest or famine, the soil does not forgive idleness. Sick? Too bad. Illness is your default state, and no one excuses it. If you collapse, your children take your place. Skilled tradesmen fare little better. A blacksmith hammers iron until his arms feel like molten lead. Sparks burn his skin. Lungs fill with smoke. A cooper bends wood into barrels until his spine curves permanently into a question mark. A carpenter saws, hammers, inhales dust until his chest rattles. Each craft brings pride. Yes, but also exhaustion, injury, and the creeping knowledge that your body is wearing out years before its time. Servants in noble households live in a different kind of misery. You sleep in the hallways, ready at any moment to stoke fires, fetch water, scrub floors, or endure the tantrums of those born into wealth. Privacy doesn't exist. Gratitude doesn't exist. Your reward is scraps from the table, cold leftovers from feasts where meat and wine flowed freely for your masters. And children, they do not wait for adulthood. As soon as they can walk without stumbling, they work. Boys sweep chimneys, haul water, tend animals. Girls spin wool, churn butter, mind younger siblings. Childhood isn't a protected stage of life. It's unpaid labor with smaller hands. Many don't survive long enough to grow old. But while they live, they toil. Women balance double burdens. They labor in fields, in kitchens, at spinning wheels, and at childbirth, which arrives often and risks killing them every time. Their days are endless chains of tasks, carrying water, kneading dough, scrubbing laundry in cold streams until their knuckles crack and bleed. And when things go wrong, the cow dies. The bread burns. The child falls, sick blame lands squarely on their shoulders. There are no weekends. No holidays except those sanctioned by the church, which are as much about obligation as rest. There is no retirement. Either. You work until your body gives out. And when it does, you're replaced. By your son. By your daughter. By the neighbor's child. In Tudor Britain, work is not about purpose or ambition. It is survival in its rawest form. You labor not to thrive, but to keep hunger and death at bay for one more day. And the cruel truth, for many, even that is not enough. Your body aches from labor. But in Tudor Britain, that's hardly unique. Everyone aches. Everyone coughs. Everyone carries a quiet dread that the smallest boil, fever, or sore throat could mean death. And when sickness comes as it inevitably does, medicine here is less science, more theater. The theory guiding most physicians is ancient and deeply flawed. The four humors. Your body, they say, is governed by four fluids: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Illness? Clearly. One of these humors has gone rogue. The solution? Bleeding, purging, sweating, or all three, often until you're too weak to protest. Doctors slice veins, apply leeches, or prescribe emetics that make you vomit until you see stars. The idea is balance. The result is misery. If you're wealthy, you can summon an actual physician, dressed in fine robes, quoting Latin as if it proves he knows what he's doing. But his treatments differ little from the barber surgeons. And yes, barbers double as surgeons. The same man who trims your beard will cheerfully amputate a leg, lance a boil, or yank a tooth. His instruments? Rusty knives, saws, and pliers wiped on an apron. Sterilization is unheard of. Anesthesia doesn't exist. Pain is not just expected, it's part of the cure. If you're poor, your options shrink further. The local wise woman might offer herbal remedies, garlic pressed into wounds, chamomile for fevers, nettles for pain. Sometimes these treatments help. Sometimes they make things worse. Sometimes they're mistaken for witchcraft, and the healer is punished rather than thanked. Quacks wander towns, hawking miracle cures in bottless snake oil, mercury elixirs, or powders promising to banish plague. Buyers cling to hope. Most die anyway. Dentistry deserves its own chapter of horror. Toothaches are common. Infections deadly. Without anesthetic. Extractions are performed by brute force. Imagine iron pliers clamping on rotten enamel, twisting until blood pours and bone cracks. People scream until their voices break. Afterwards, they may keep the tooth as a charmer, sell it. Because even misery has a market. And then there are epidemics. When plague sweeps through town, and it does so, often it transforms everything. Red crosses are painted on infected homes. Families are locked inside, left to die together while neighbors pray the disease won't leap through walls. The doctors wear their infamous bird masks, long, beaked contraptions stuffed with herbs and flowers. They believe the mask filters out miasma, the bad air that supposedly carries disease. In truth, it does not except terrify children and brand the wearer as a harbinger of death. For ordinary ailments, fever, rashes, headaches, you're told to pray. For severe honest tumors, paralysis, seizures, you're told to confess sins. For plague, flee if you can. The poor stay behind. The rich escape to country estates. Death follows both. In Tudor Britain, medicine doesn't heal, it gambles. And more often than not, the house wins. You clutch your stomach, praying the pain fades. But prayer here isn't just comfort, it's policy. In Tudor Britain, religion isn't private. It isn't even entirely spiritual. It's a weapon, a leash, and sometimes a death sentence. The Reformation tore England's faith in two, and you're living in the aftershocks. First, Henry VIII declares himself head of the Church of England, divorcing Rome as casually as he divorced his wives. Overnight, Catholicism is out, and allegiance to the Pope becomes treason. Refuse to swear loyalty to Henry's new church, and you risk execution, perhaps by hanging, perhaps by burning, perhaps by the axe. But then comes Mary I, Henry's daughter, who restores Catholicism with fire and fury. She earns the name Bloody Mary by burning hundreds of Protestants alive, their screams filling marketplaces while the crowd looks on. Owning an English Bible becomes contraband. Whisper a Protestant prayer, and you may be betrayed by a neighbor eager to curry favor. Elizabeth I swings the pendulum back again. Protestantism reigns, but cautiously. As long as you don't stir trouble, your faith might be tolerated. But cross the line, say Mass in secret. Shelter a Jesuit priest. Speak too loudly about Romand. The noose waits. Heresy trials become public theater, with your body the ticket price. Church attendance is mandatory. Skipping Sunday service brings fines, gossip, and suspicion. Sermons are not just about God, they're about loyalty to the crown. Priests report whispers and doubts to authorities. Confession is less about sin than surveillance. Religion bleeds into daily life. Festivals follow the liturgical calendar. Laws about fasting and feasting are tied to holy days. Marriage, birth, and death all pass through church hands. Even your clothing colors are regulated by faith-backed laws. Fear shapes your prayers. You mutter them not only for salvation but for safety. To be too Catholic under a Protestant monarch or too Protestant under a Catholic one is fatal. Your spiritual beliefs aren't your own. They're dictated from the throne, shifting with the monarch's whims. Imagine living each day knowing that the same words of prayer that saved you last year could condemn you this year. That is Tudor religion, not a sanctuary, but a trap, with eternity dangled like bait on the end of a noose. Just when you think life can't grow harsher, the air changes. A cough from the neighbor's child, a whisper of fever, a swelling under the arm, suddenly. It's plague season again. In Tudor Britain, epidemics return like clockwork, grinding through towns with the predictability of winter, but the cruelty of fire. The most feared visitor is the bubonic plague, the Black Death's unshakable shadow. Symptoms creep in fast: chills, headaches, then the dreaded buboes black, oozing swellings in the armpits or groin. Soon your skin darkens, your breath grows foul, and death hovers just days away. Some linger longer, festering in agony, praying for release. Others die so swiftly it seems the body simply shuts itself off like a snuffed candle. Hygiene does nothing to help, because there is none. Rats teem in streets already flooded with waste. Fleas jump from fur to flesh, carrying disease with them. Whole households collapse within a week. Doors marked with red crosses to warn neighbors. The sick are sealed inside. Families dying together while the healthy flee. The sound of hammers sealing a plague house door is the sound of a death sentence. Doctors arrive in their grotesque bird masks. The long beaks stuffed with herbs meant to purify the miasma, or bad air. Their very presence is terrifying. They rarely save lives, but always signal that death has arrived. Treatments are desperate, bleeding the patient until faint, lancing buboes with dirty knives, forcing potions of vinegar or mercury down throats already too dry to swallow. None of it works. The death cart still rattles down the street, piled high with bodies, bells tolling for each load. Fear spreads faster than the disease. Markets empty. Churches close. Trade halts. People blame sin, witches, foreigners, or even cats, slaughtering them in panic. Ironically, killing cats only worsens the problem, unleashing more rats. Survivors whisper that plague is God's punishment, a divine wrath that no herb, prayer, or mask can deflect. If you survive, congratulations, but don't relax. Another wave will come. Months or years later. The plague doesn't vanish. It waits. Patient. Circling back with relentless cruelty. In Tudor Britain, the question is never if plague will return. It's when. Life in Tudor Britain is hard, filthy, and short. But humans always crave distraction. And here leisure is equal parts brutal spectacle, crude comedy, and fleeting moments of joy. Entertainment doesn't soothe, it bludgeons. The most popular pastime? Public executions. These are not solemn affairs. They're festivals. Crowds gather in squares. Families bring children. Vendors sell pies and ale. Everyone jostles for a view of the scaffold, where someone will hang, burn, or be beheaded. If it's hanging, the crowd cheers when the rope jerks taut. Jeers if the condemned writhes too long. Nobles get cleaner death's beheadings with a sword or axe. A skilled executioner takes one swing. A clumsy one hacks through flesh and bone with grim persistence. Either way, the audience treats it like sport. The more dramatic the suffering, the louder the applause. If executions feel too tame, there's bear baiting. A chained bear is set upon by dogs, snarling and tearing until one side falls. Sometimes the bear wins, often the dogs. But either way, the crowd loves it. Blood, fur, and teeth fly while wagers pass hand to hand. Cockfighting is another crowd pleaser. Roosters, with sharpened spurs, tearing each other apart, while men shout bets and children cheer. Animal cruelty isn't hidden here. It's packaged as entertainment. But not all pastimes drip blood. There's theater. In London, the Globe and other playhouses thrive, filling with peasants and nobles alike. Shakespeare's words ring out across rowdy audiences who boo villains, cheer heroes, and throw rotten vegetables if a scene bores them. The pit is a chaos of bodies, ale, and heckling, while galleries above offer slightly more dignity. Plays mix comedy, tragedy, murder, and romance, and everyone laps it up. For a few hours, the filth of Tudor streets disappears into verse and drama. Music and dancing are common too. Till fiddles, lutes, and pipes play at feasts and festivals. People sing bawdy songs, clap rhythms, and whirl in circles on dirt floors until their feet ache. Games of chanstities, cards, backgammon fill taverns, though the church condemns them as sinful distractions. Still, the clatter of dice on wood echoes through smoky alehouses late into the night. Not all leisure is communal. Some find joy in storytelling around the hearth. in riddles and jests, in gathering to mock neighbors or whisper gossip. But even laughter here is sharp, often cruel, at someone else's expense. The Tudor sense of humor runs dark, forged by a world where survival itself feels absurd. So, after work, filth, hunger, and fear, what do you do for fun? You watch someone hang. You throw a turnip at an actor. You cheer as animals bleed. Or, if you're lucky, you clap along to a song that drowns the gnawing dread for just a little while. Tudor leisure isn't kind. It's survival dressed up as entertainment. You lock eyes with someone across a muddy street. Sparks. Perhaps a smile. A blush. But stop, this isn't romance as you know it. In Tudor Britain, marriage is not about love. It's about land, status, and survival. Affection is a bonus, not a foundation. Families arrange matches like business deals. A daughter's dowry is weighed against the groom's land or craft. Sons are promised to daughters who bring pigs, goats, or a patch of fertile soil into the equation. Love poems may be written, but they serve as negotiations in disguise. Courtship is less candlelit glances and more spreadsheets in human form. Fathers shake hands. Daughters obey. For the nobility, marriage is outright politics. Kings and queens barter their children to secure alliances across Europe. A teenage girl might find herself sent to marry a man twice her age. His gout already advanced. His smile missing half its teeth. Her consent irrelevant. Her body and womb are assets for dynastic survival. Her feelings vanish under the weight of treaties and titles. Among peasants, there's slightly more choice. You might marry the girl who grazes her cows beside yours, or the boy who helps harvest your neighbor's barley. Yet even here, property and survival matter most. A strong back, a healthy flock, a family reputation all count more than fluttering hearts. And still, the church must bless it. Marriage is holy, binding, and for life. Divorce is nearly impossible. Unless you're the king himself and willing to split from the Pope. Sex before marriage? A sin. Which means, of course, that many do it anyway. If caught, excuses tumble out. You were pre-contracted, secretly engaged, or bewitched by her beauty. Or it was all an accident. The penalty is usually a fine, though shame burns hotter than coins. Pregnancies outside wedlock mark women for life. The child often branded a bastard with limited rights. Inside marriage, life is no fairy tale. Women bear child after child, often losing their lives in childbirth. Men shoulder endless financial strain. Adultery is common. Discretion less so. Husbands stray. Wives endure, though both risk ruin if caught. For women especially, infidelity can end in public shaming, punishment, even death. Romance exists in cracks and corner-stolen glances, whispered words, letters folded and passed in secret. Ballads sing of love's triumph, but daily reality is more practical. Your partner is less soulmate, more co-worker in the relentless business of survival. So, is there love in Tudor Britain? Yes, but it's fragile, often buried beneath duty, law, and hunger. Love is not the reason for marriage. It is what grows, if it grows at all, after vows are already spoken. If you cherish hot showers, crisp linen, and the minty bite of toothpaste, brace yourself. In Tudor Britain, hygiene is not a daily ritual. All it's a rumor. To be clean is unusual. To be filthy is ordinary. Bathing happens rarely, sometimes only a few times a year. Bathhouses exist, but they're falling out of favor, tainted by associations with disease and sin. Some even claim that too much bathing opens the pores to infection. Better to stay coated in sweat and dirt than risk letting the plague sneak in through your skin. Queen Elizabeth I supposedly bathed once a month. That's luxury. For peasants, the closest you come is rinsing your feet in a stream between fieldwork and fever. Soap is crude, made of lye and animal fat, more likely to strip skin raw than leave it refreshed. Water itself is suspect, filled with bacteria, dead fish, and chamber pot runoff, which is why everyone, children included, drinks ale instead. Weak beer replaces water at breakfast, lunch, and supper. You are always mildly buzzed, but at least you aren't dead from dysentery. Clothing is not washed often. Linen undergarments are worn until they yellow and stiffen with grime. Outer garments are brushed, beaten, or spritzed with perfume, but rarely submerged in water. Shrinkage is feared more than filth. A shrunken doublet is a social disaster. A soiled one is just life. Hair is a breeding ground for lice and fleas. Combs scrape through scalps daily, though rarely with much success. Couples sit together, picking lice from each other's heads, treating it as a kind of intimacy. Wigs, powdered with starch, or even bone dust, add style but not hygiene. They simply carry a different kind of itch. Dental care, primitive at best. Toothpaste doesn't exist. People rub teeth with rags dipped in soot, salt, or crushed oyster shells. The wealthy, consuming more sugar, suffer worse rot. Elizabeth I's teeth turned black with decay. And because she was queen, black teeth became a fashion trend. Imagine deliberately staining your smile just to imitate royal rot. Smell defines you. Perfumes and pomanders, little balls, stuffed with herbs, mask the stench, but never eliminate it. Imagine lavender battling wet dog and losing. The odor of Tudor life clings to everything: skin, clothes, breath. Step into any crowd, and the collective stench is overwhelming. In this world, clean is not a state. It's an illusion. You do not scrub away dirt. You layer herbs and scents over it, pretending. The stink of Tudor Britain is not something you avoid. It is something you carry with you, everywhere, always. Perhaps you've had enough of the filth, hunger, and constant labor. Maybe you're tempted to steal a loaf of bread, mutter a rebellious thought, or insult your neighbor's hat. Careful crime in Tudor Britain doesn't come with second chances. The justice system here is brutal, swift, and more concerned with spectacle than fairness. Trials are short. Lawyers, rare. Evidence, irrelevant. Most judgments come down to the word of your accuser and the whim of the judge. You might protest, plead, or swear innocence, but the outcome is usually the same: punishment so public and humiliating that everyone else remembers not to try what you did. Petty crime: stealing food, slander, drunken disorder often land you in the stocks. Your head and hands are locked in wooden boards while neighbors pelt you with rotten vegetables, dung, or even stones. If they're feeling especially cruel, they toss dead rats. Children laugh, adults jeer, and your shame lingers long after your release. Whippings are common too. Your back lashed in the marketplace while everyone watches. Branding with hot irons marks repeat offenders, searing symbols into skin that announce your crime for life. More serious offenses bring harsher ends. Adultery can mean public shaming, ear cropping, or worse. Blasphemy risks mutilation. For theft of value, expect hanging. Executions are not hidden behind prison walls. They're central entertainment. Gallows stand tall in towns. And when someone swings, the whole community gathers to watch. A quick death by rope is rare. Often the condemned dangles and jerks until suffocation slowly claims them. Treason, witchcraft, or heresy bring the grandest punishments. Hanging, drawing, and quartering is the most infamous. You're hanged until nearly dead. Cut open, your insides pulled out, then your body carved into pieces and displayed as warning. Beheadings are reserved for nobles, though even that can go horribly wrong if the executioner lacks skill. Anne Boleyn at least had a French swordsman cleaner, quicker, almost elegant. Others endured multiple axe swings before the crowd. Sometimes mercy means exile, transported to distant colonies. You escape the rope, but face a different kind of death-foreign disease. Starvation, endless labor. Few return. In Tudor Britain, punishment isn't about reform. It's about fear. The message is clear: step out of line, and your body becomes the lesson. Justice is less about law and more about theater, staged with ropes, irons, and fire. And you, whether guilty or not, are always one wrong word away from being the star of the show. Night falls, but don't expect rest. In Tudor Britain, even sleep is treacherous. Comfort is a fantasy, and danger lingers in the dark. Your bed is a sack stuffed with straw that smells of mildew, sweat, and livestock. If you're wealthy, you might sleep on ropes stretched across a wooden frame, tightened nightly, hence the phrase sleep tight. But most of you share cramped, filthy quarters with family, servants, and sometimes animals. Privacy doesn't exist. The concept of a bedroom belongs centuries in the future. People often sleep in shifts. First sleep, then waking hours in the middle of the night to maybe three-toe, pray, stoke fires, even churn butter or chop wood. Then comes second, sleep until dawn. Darkness itself is feared. Night air is thought to spread disease, so windows stay sealed, turning the room into a suffocating stew of farts, sweat, and breath. Candles glow faintly, each one a fire hazard. Homes are wooden, roofs thatched. Fall asleep with a candle burning, and you may never wake your family engulfed in flames before dawn. Fire is a constant fear. Even in palaces, smoke stains, ceilings, and accidents ignite tragedies. Then come the insects: lice, fleas, bedbugstony vampires feeding on your blood while you toss on itchy straw. Scratch until you bleed, and infection soon follows. Rats scurry beneath floorboards, their squeaks a nightly chorus. The line between vermin and household companion blurs uncomfortably. Superstition poisons rest as much as discomfort. Bad dreams are signs of curses or demons. Sleepwalking, proof of possession. Many keep charms, prayers, or holy relics nearby to ward off evil in the night. If you mutter in your sleep, someone might suspect witchcraft. And don't forget the supernatural dread. Ghosts, spirits, and witches are believed to wander after dusk. Shadows at the foot of the bed spark whispered prayers. A knock at the door at midnight, omen of death. Even in slumber, fear grips you. You close your eyes, exhausted, praying for rest. But in Tudor Britain, sleep is not peace, it's another gamble. One you may not win. Wake up and remember your place. In Tudor Britain, society is stacked like a stone tower, each layer pressing down on the one beneath. At the pinnacle stands the monarch, a figure so powerful that a wrong glance, an ill-chosen word, or an unfortunate rumor could end your life. The king or queen is not just ruler, they are seen as God's anointed, their authority extending from earth to heaven. Beneath them, nobles lounge in luxury, draped in silks and velvet, their castles filled with servants. Their privilege isn't simply wealth, it's law. They dine on meats and sugar, while peasants gnaw crusts. They control land, dictate justice, and marry strategically to preserve power. Their children inherit titles. Yours inherit debt. Next come the gentry and merchants. They lack titles but wield influence through property and trade. A successful merchant may become wealthy enough to rival nobles, but laws and custom keep him firmly in place. No matter how many ships he owns, he cannot wear purple. Purple is for royalty alone. Guarded by sumptuary, law's strict rules dictating who may wear what fabrics and colors. These laws ensure that even clothing screams your rank. Silk for the rich, wool for the poor. And God help you if you're caught in the wrong fabric. Below them lie yeoman farmers, artisans, and tradesmen. They form the backbone of England, toiling endlessly for survival. A blacksmith, a weaver, a cooper's guild. Yes, but still common. Below them are laborers and servants, living at the mercy of others, sleeping in corners, always on call. And at the very bottom, the poor. Beggars, vagrants, orphans. Their lives are deemed worthless, their poverty interpreted as sin. Laws punish them harshly, beg too often, and you may be whipped, branded, or sent to the gallows. Poverty itself is treated as a crime. Social mobility, a fantasy. To rise above your birth is nearly impossible unless fortune smiles with freakish generosity. A peasant girl might catch a wealthy man's eye, or a soldier might distinguish himself in war. But such stories are rare, whispered like fairy tales. For most, your class is your destiny. And if you try to act above your station, society strikes you down. Ambition is dangerous. Speak too eloquently. Dress too finely. or behave above yourself, and you risk charges of witchcraft, treason, or worse. Tudor society is not just a hierarchy, it is a prison. Your birth writes the script. Your role is fixed. And every day you perform it under the watchful eyes of neighbors, nobles, and the crown. Step out of line, and the entire structure is waiting to crush you. Morning comes, and it's not leisure that greets you. It's labor. In Tudor Britain, work is not about passion or career choice. It is survival. Plain and brutal. If you're a farmer, you rise before dawn. A scrap of bread, maybe ale, fuels you as you stumble into the fields. Plows creak, oxen strain, and your hands blister against wooden handles. You bend, dig, haul, and sweat until the sun dips low. Then keep going. There are no weekends, no holidays except church days, and even those often bleed into chores. Sickness? Not an excuse. Work sick or starve. And if you collapse, your children take your place. Childhood is brief here. Labor begins as soon as you can lift a bucket. Skilled tradesmen, blacksmiths, coopers, weavers fare little better. Workshops are cramped, smoky, and dim. The blacksmith hammers endlessly, his lungs filling with soot. The cooper bends wood into barrels until his spine twists into permanent ache. The weaver threads until eyes burn and fingers cramp. A lifetime of repetition bends bodies into crooked shapes. These trades bring pride, but also exhaustion. Servants endure a different kind of grind. In noble households, they rise before their masters, fetching water, stoking fires, hauling chamber pots, and tending kitchens. They sleep in corridors or under staircases, always within earshot in case their betters call. A servant's dignity is fragile, crushed under the weight of constant orders. Their reward? Leftover scraps of food and the privilege of serving until death. Women carry a double burden. They spin, sew, cook, fetch water, churn butter, and care for children while still expected to labor in fields or workshops. Pregnancy is no reprieve. Many work until the moment of childbirth, then return to tasks within days, often with another child strapped to their back. Children's labor is harsh and dangerous. Boys climb chimneys or drive livestock. Girls haul water and tend fires, risking burns before reaching their teens. Every pair of hands, no matter how small, must contribute to survival. There is no concept of retirement. Work continues until your body fails. If you're lucky, Family carries you through old age. If not, you join the vagrants on the street, branded as idle scum. The state treats unemployment as sin, punishing beggars as though laziness were worse than death. And yet, despite the hardship, work knits communities together. Farmers trade with bakers, coopers with brewers, weavers with merchants. Every labor, no matter how small, feeds into the rhythm of Tudor life. Survival is communal but always precarious. In Tudor Britain, work is not a dream. It is the anchor that drags you down until the day it finally pulls you under. Feeling unwell? Perhaps it's a fever, a swollen boil, or a cough that rattles your chest. In Tudor Britain, medicine offers little hope. Step into a physician's chamber, and what awaits is less science and more medieval guesswork wrapped in ritual. Doctors cling to the ancient belief in the four humors: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. Sickness is thought to come from imbalance. Too much phlegm? Expect a concoction of herbs to dry you out. Too much blood? You'll be bled until you faint. Physicians prick veins, slice skin, or apply leeches, draining life in an effort to restore balance. Relief rarely comes weakness. Infection and death often follow. Barber surgeons double as physicians. Yes, the man trimming your beard may also amputate your leg. Tools are crude: knives, saws, forceps. Anesthesia doesn't exist. The only pain relief is alcohol or sheer unconsciousness. Surgery is quick, brutal, and almost always fatal, not from the wound, but from infection. Surgeons wipe blades on aprons, rinse them in water, then move on to the next body. For the poor, healers are family members, village wise women, or traveling quacks selling potions from carts. Garlic poultices are stuffed into wounds. Warm cow dung is smeared on chests for asthma. Mercury is swallowed to purge bad spirits. Remedies often do more harm than the disease itself. Still, when no alternatives exist, hope is swallowed with every foul potion. Dentistry is its own nightmare. A raging toothache means a visit to the barber surgeon, who yanks the tooth with iron pliers. No sterilization, no anesthesia, just brute force and a scream that echoes down the street. People sometimes keep the extracted tooth as a charm, worn on strings or buried for luck. And then there are the plagues. Physicians parade in bird-like masks, the beak stuffed with herbs to block miasma. They prod the sick with sticks, fearing direct touch. Treatments include burning aromatic woods, bleeding until collapse, or lancing swollen buboes. None of it saves lives. The death cart still collects bodies, rolling endlessly through towns. Superstition is medicine's twin. Amulets ward off illness. Holy water sprinkles across wounds. Prayers compete with poultices. Illness is seen not just as physical, but moral punishment from God for sin. The cure? Repentance, fasting, and hope. In Tudor Britain, sickness is not a battle you fight with medicine. It is a roll of dice with death. If you recover, it's a miracle. If you die, it's expected. And no matter how much you pray, bleed, or swallow, medicine here is less about healing and more about enduring. In Tudor Britain, faith is not a quiet, private choice. It is a weapon, a leash, and a constant risk. Religion is tangled with politics, and which prayer you whisper at night might decide whether you live to see morning. Once, England bowed to Rome. Catholic masses, Latin prayers, and papal authority guided daily life. Then came Henry VIII, who tore England from the Pope with one decree: the king, not the Pope, is head of the Church. Overnight, loyalty shifted from Rome to Crown, and anyone who resisted was branded a traitor. Refused to accept the king as supreme head of the Church, to the scaffold. Even respected figures like Sir Thomas More lost their heads. But the pendulum never stopped swinging. Henry's daughter Mary restores Catholicism with fire and blood, earning the name Bloody Mary by burning hundreds of Protestants at the stake. Neighbors betray neighbors, accusing them of heresy to save themselves. Owning the wrong Bible English instead of Latin becomes a death sentence. Then comes Elizabeth I, Henry's other daughter, who shifts England back to Protestantism with a wink and a compromise. Her rule demands conformity, but tolerates small private deviations so long as they don't stir unrest. Yet even then, suspicion lingers. Be too Catholic, too Protestant, too loud, or too silent, and you risk imprisonment or worse. Religion saturates daily life. Church attendance is mandatory. Failure to show up means fines or punishment. Sermons aren't just about God, they're political speeches, reinforcing loyalty to monarch and state. Priests act as informants, eyes and ears of the crown. Faith itself is woven with fear. Every sickness, crop failure, or storm is a punishment from God. Every fortune, a blessing. Superstition thrives alongside doctrine. Charms ward off evil. Relics bring protection. And whispers of witches haunt the countryside. The line between religion and magic is thin, often blurred. for ordinary people. Faith is survival. You pray not out of pure devotion, but out of terror. One wrong word, one forbidden book, one whispered doubt could land you in chains. You live not by your own belief, but by whichever creed the throne demands that year. In Tudor Britain, religion does not offer peace. It offers rules, suspicion, and the constant reminder that salvation or execution depends less on God and more on politics. Just when you think life in Tudor Britain cannot grow any harsher, the air itself turns against you. The plague arrived not once, but again and again, sweeping through towns like a scythe through dry grass. It begins with whisper. A neighbor coughs. A rash spreads. Someone collapses in the street. Soon, doors are marked with red crosses, nailed shut to trap the sick inside, while the healthy pray they won't share the same fate. Death carts rattle through alleys, piled with bodies swaddled in rags. The air reeks of rot and smoke from hastily dug plague pits. The lucky die fast. The unlucky linger, feverish and swollen, their cries echoing until silence claims them. Doctors wear bird masks, stuffed with herbs to block miasma, the foul air blamed for disease. They prod patients from a distance, their beaked faces more terrifying than comforting. Treatment is brutal, bleeding, burning herbs, or lancing buboes. None of it works. Death doesn't discriminate peasant or noble. All are swept away. When plague recedes, death lingers in other forms. Execution days draw cheering crowds. The gallows, the scaffold, and the stake are theaters of blood. Hangings for thieves, beheadings for nobles, burnings for heresy, a public lesson, each a spectacle. Parents bring children. Vendors sell pies. And the condemned's agony is entertainment. Fear and fascination intertwine. Death is as familiar as bread. And yet, life insists on joy amid horror. People flock to bear-baiting pits, where chained animals battle for survival against packs of dogs. Cockfights and dogfights stir gambling frenzies. Theaters fill with laughter and applause as Shakespeare's plays spill murder, ghosts, and wit across wooden stages. The crowd is rowdy, drunk, and armed with rotten fruit to pelt at actors who bore them. Leisure is rough, noisy, and always laced with danger. Marriage is transactional, work relentless, hygiene non-existent, justice merciless, and faith perilous. Death stalks every corner through disease, punishment, or accident. And yet the people endure. They laugh. They gamble. they cheer, they weep, they love, however imperfectly. This is Tudor Britain, brutal, filthy, joyous, fearful, and stubbornly alive. Surviving one day here is a victory. Surviving a lifetime is a miracle. You've walked the streets of Tudor Britain, felt the hunger in your belly, the smoke in your lungs, and the weight of fear pressing against every corner of life. You've stood beneath gallows, ducked under chamber pots, and listened to prayers whispered more from terror than faith. And yet, somehow, people lived. They laughed in theaters, held hands under smoky rafters, and found fleeting moments of joy in music, feasts, or the quiet glow of a candle before sleep. It's strange, isn't it, how even in times when survival was uncertain, humanity clung to stories, to rituals, to love. The past, no matter how dark, always leaves us with fragments of resilience. Even here, among filth and plague, there was laughter in taverns, songs around fires, and children chasing each other down muddy lanes. The human spirit endures, not by erasing hardship, but by finding glimmers of light within it. As you rest now, let the noise of Tudor life drift away. Picture the streets fading into mist, the harsh smells dissolving into nothing, the clamor of voices quieting until only silence remains. Imagine the weight lifting from your shoulders as you step out of that world and back into your own. A place where clean water flows, medicine heals, and comfort is no longer rare but daily. Breathe deeply. The candle gutters, then goes out. What remains is stillness. What remains is safety. Let the echoes of history soften into a distant hum, like the faint murmur of waves against a shore. You've survived Tudor Britain. Now, you can finally let go. Close your eyes. Sink into the softness around you, and drift gently into sleep.